Good afternoon. My name is Mark. I'm with GovDirections here today to give you a presentation on the RFP. Excuse me. And welcome you here to Gov School. We are live on YouTube. If you're in the private room, just know that the information is available to you, and it is a recorded version for privacy reasons. You should also maintain your mute status for the benefit of others. That'll help us make sure we have a solid presentation. I want to thank you for joining us. Today, what we're going to do is talk about the request for proposal. Number one question I get at GovDirections and rfpdelivery.com is, excuse me, a little cough today. It is, what is an RFP and how do I go about responding to them? So I'd like to do this session as one of my favorite sessions in order to take the mystery out of this document. Of course, it is a contracted instrument, and governments do use that to solicit you as a private vendor to provide services or supplies to them. I would share with you today that if you have any specific questions, give us a call at 800-492-8523. At our website, you'll see the information and the contact information there at the top or on the front page, right there, ready to go for you to give us a call, or you can book a private demonstration of our services. The primary goal is to assist you with learning how to find and win government requests for proposals. So it is important that you understand what's involved in those. Here we are in 2023. I hope everybody's having a great start to their new year. I always like to start with just a quick quote, and that is, it's supposed to be hard. If it were easy, everyone would do it. Excuse me. And you are here for a reason. And just like in this particular situation from Tom Hanks, who was in a league of their own, he basically was there for some softball players who came together and, just reminding them that everybody likes to play softball, but if to be the best, it's supposed to be hard. You got to get in there and you got to do it. And that's what we're there. I want to encourage you also, if you haven't signed up for 8 weeks of training, we're involved in those. And soon we'll start. We're basically at the halfway point now. So you may want to get ready for the next sessions. This is an 8-week series designed to help you get it started. It's free it's complimentary to our members. And we walk you through really 8 steps to what I think is necessary to really get through to that winning project. I would also point out that at Gov School, we have other classes that are available to you, and you can always go and see our schedule. We have some premium classes coming up next week by Tammy Bailey-Foles. So I highly recommend her. She's going to start off talking about performance history and how to go about framing your company in the right way. This is sort of a must for business. And it's before you get started bidding and responding, you really need to know where you stand at and how to sell your company. So that starts off Monday and leads into registering with government, making sure you got your registrations in place the right way. Also researching opportunities for your industry, and then ending up the last day on Thursday with actually writing the right RFP response. This is a solid group. They are priced individually as a premium class 101 with Miss Bailey-Foles. She's an expert in this topic, but there are discounts available if you want the whole series. Just give us a call, and our sales staff can help you with that at the appropriate time. So make sure that you're setting yourself up right. But today, what we're going to do is talk about the RFP itself. In this particular session, we're going to identify the structure of a request for proposal. We will walk through each section and explain its importance. We also use an actual RFP as an example. I'm going to bounce around the web a little bit at our services to kind of show you how we search and find these listings, and really should kind of show you the actual difference. Einstein say, I don't think I may even use this quote here. His famous quote is, experience is the best way of learning, and I want you to be aware of that as you go into it. So before we even get started on the RFP, just know that contracting instruments frame how governments interact with the private sector. They want to make sure everyone is treated equally and fairly. So they have these documents in place to alert you when they're going out to the marketplace. Before we get to the RFP, be aware of what a request for information is and how they're different. They're basically governments are asking you to tell them about your company and that what your market is. And And you should have your capability statement ready to go and speaking to your company's services and supplies, so that you can respond to them the right way. And the capability statement really is the best way to do that on the request for information. They'll actually will come in and they will tell you specifically what you will need to look to do, and what they're looking for. And then if when you respond back to them, you get a good match. Oftentimes, these can actually lead straight to a contract, so they're not something to be ignored. Request for qualifications, RFQ is available to you whenever they're looking for a professional service, potentially an engineer, architect, maybe some sort of particular qualification they're looking for, including from painters to maybe the HVAC technicians. Here, they're making sure that you've got the qualifications before you go out and actually bid. Sometimes these are used at the beginning of any fiscal year or calendar year in order to alert you to a contract throughout the entire fiscal year or budget year, and then that can allow their staff to buy off those directly. So they pre-qualify you and then get you set up, and then you go back and then contract with them. Source of salt, typically used at the federal government level, but primarily to make sure that there's a marketplace for the product or service that they're seeking to purchase. And if it's limited, they may go straight to market, and they can do that. Or if there is a competitive marketplace, and typically they use that as a reason to make sure that to go out and actually seek future competitive bids. Invitation to quote, more of a straight shot. Here I know exactly what I want. I want you to give me a quick turnaround, quick response. I may actually go in and ask for your quote by phone, but it's something informal process, but not as formal as even the invitation to bid, which is somewhat similar. Request for bid, there they got the specs listed, they know exactly what they want, and they really want you to give them the price for the widget or the hour or something like that. But it's very straightforward, and everyone's treated the same way. Oftentimes they just give you a bid sheet to send back, nothing too complex, but with the specification really spelled out. And then that leads me to the one I always respond to, because this is where they really are looking to hire someone who hopefully knows what they're talking about, the subject matter expert. Here, the government knows what they're trying to achieve, and they have their objective, but they look to you to tell them best on how they can accomplish those objectives. And so they want a proposal back to them. Okay, so you're invited to the table, and you're able to help frame that in the right way. So what is a request for proposal? Well, first of all, it is still a solicitation. Okay, they want your involvement. They want you to respond. It is a competitive situation. It's done through a bidding process. It's when you look at them, it may look and feel like they know what they're trying to hire somebody specific. But it's not. If they're asking for your proposals, then they're in a competitive situation, and you have a shot at that transaction just like anyone else. What I always encourage our clients to do is, go ahead. In fact, on your website, if you don't have a website, we can help you with that. But go ahead and draft a sample RFP for your company, and use this as a demonstration of exactly what a city or county or school or state agency would ask for if they were hiring you. You tell them, okay? And oftentimes, sometimes it's easier to kind of take something that's already out there and use it as a template to get started. We're not all experts in every single topic. We can't expect a procurement officer to be. So using a sample RFP that a company provides us, it's a fair process. And so if you have one ready to go, not only does it send a signal that you know what you're talking about, but it also it helps the government. And then when you look at it, and then when your competitor looks at it, they're going to say, hey, it looks like they're trying to hire my friend's company or something like that, because that's the way it can come across as. And but in actuality, it's just that other company helped them in the process, because they're trying to acquire a commodity, a service, or valuable asset. There's a lot of time goes into it, and it's an elaborate decision-making process. And so if you could help them in that term, then it just saves everybody time and money. And then not only that, it can help lead you. So get that RFP, get a sample RFP written for your company. It's a good investment. The first investment you make is your capability statement by hands down. Get that done first. The second part is the actual, maybe a sample RFP response. And as you're building that, you're actually building other parts of your template for your future responses to RFPs as well. Things like your executive summary and so forth. We're going to talk about some of that here as we move forward. Okay. The typical parts that you find with an RFP, you see this over and over again. Okay. When you first see one, it should have really a clear statement of work. When I actually teach a graduate class of future expiring procurement officers or somebody who's going to lead a procurement team at a major university, and I teach them how to write RFPs. And so the first thing I tell them is, start with your ABCs. Okay. This is the basics of technical writing: accuracy, brevity, and clarity. Okay. So your ABCs are very important in knowing what you are asking for. And so that statement of work, it needs to be clear to you. It should be hopefully in a paragraph or two at the most. But when you read it as a company, it should say to you, this is exactly what I do. And therefore, I'm going to respond. I want to respond to this. You should get excited when you read the statement of work. And if you're not, then you need to just put that aside and go and do something else and start looking for another one. Because if that statement of work doesn't speak straight to you, then it's not going to be your business. It's a $6 trillion marketplace. It's a big marketplace. There are plenty of opportunities. You can go in, day out, and find opportunities. No doubt. If in business, sometimes it's more seasonal depending on the work you do, but governments are buying all the time. And we list over 1.5 million listings a year in that $6 trillion marketplace. It's only increasing. It's not decreasing. If you may hear in the headlines all the time, they're like cutting budgets and so forth. This year is going to be the largest spending period in American history at every level of government. And so you're getting yourself ready, you're going to be ahead. And so your statement of work should be there, speak to you. If not, you got plenty of business to move on to. Once you get past that, you're going to look at the technical specifications. Here, most times we can do all of them. Sometimes we can't. If I can't, achieve the statement of work, I'm going to bypass it. But if I can do, 80% of the technical specs, then I'm going to respond. 70% even. You'll learn your own indicators. Sometimes you start determining whether or not you need to build a team in order to respond by reading the technical specs. But if you don't have a high degree of match, though, once again, let's start moving on, looking at something else. Excuse me, I've got a little bit of cough today, and I'm going to have to turn that mute off and on. But those technical specs should also become a part of your response back. And oftentimes what I find is I start recording all the technical specs in my industry as I see them. And over time, I've actually incorporated those in my own work plan so that I can then make my response better. I'm learning more. If this is something I see common in my type of human resource consulting I do, then I get additional training, get additional certification to help make sure I can always meet those technical specs. And that's keeping up with technology changes, things like that. Okay. But if they give me 10 technical specs, when I write my RFP back, I'm listing all 10 of those and I'm addressing what they're talking about in the same order that they send them out in the RFP. And remembering that you're responding to them and giving them what they want, not what you necessarily think they should get. Okay. Because the first part of working with government is understanding creativity is not there on purpose. It's meant to be specific. And they want you to address the specifications they give you, not the ones you think they need. Okay. It's not a traditional business to business environment. The first person you really are trying to get by is the procurement officer. And that individual is checking off those technical specs to see if you meet those. They're not looking for additional ones. Okay. So remember that whenever you're reading the RFP. The schedule, it's really twofold. When you look at the schedule, the first part of it is when you're going to have to respond back to them. Okay. They're telling you a process. Here is a 10-day, 20-day window. We want you to do these particular things. If I want you to be at a pre-bid conference at 11 a.m. today, then you need to be there, even if it's mandatory or not. Okay. If it's mandatory, you got to be there. But if it's not mandatory, then you can, show up and be there. And that's going to show your interest. Just some little tidbits as we go along. When you show up online, make sure it says your name, first name, last name, comma, name of your company. In fact, I can go in there real quick and you can do your own. You can just say more, rename, and you just type in your name the right way and you comma, and then all of a sudden it becomes more explanatory. You're doing more marketing. It shows your name of your company and so forth. That's also always very important. And if I'm at a meeting and I've got my capability statement, I might want to drop it in the chat box, share it with other people, and go ahead and start marketing yourself in the right way. Okay. When you come to a session, if you're on the schedule and you're going to that pre-proposal meeting, don't show up with non-specific types of names and so forth. I tell that to our class when I'm teaching classes with students in graduate school. Be professional when you're online. Oftentimes I'll see folks come online and it says mama's Zoom account. You don't want that showing up. Okay, it's not good business. Okay, the schedule itself, it's going to give you a window. You don't want to expedite the window. So if they give you 20 days, don't do it in 10 days. Okay, there could be the reason why they have expansive schedule is so that they can list addendums, or if they need to make some changes, and they're going to want to make sure that you come in and you meet those changes in the right way. Okay, and that you're able to address them. And so really focus in on that schedule. And also don't wait to the last minute. So I always say if they've got a 20-day window to respond, then you respond in the 19-day time frame. Okay, don't have that document arriving late. So many people, clients can miss out on opportunities because of that. And then the second part of the schedule is the work that they require. Okay, and then they'll tell you how they want their deliverables or the technical specs met, and when that time frame is. Okay, and so when you go back your response to them, you need to focus. You need to pay attention to that and tell them the time frame that you're going to match. Okay, oftentimes whenever I respond, I also will put a collar on there in the sense that I can't let it be open ended. So if they're telling me they want something done in March, April, May, I can do it in March, April, May. I don't need for them to say, oh yeah, at the last minute they will really want me to do this in June, July, and August. I might be able to amend that, but my pricing structure is probably based on the fact that they told me a time frame they want to meet. So I would say here is your time frame. I'm available to meet this with slight adjustments if necessary, or some sort of collar that you put on there to clear that up. You just don't want that open-ended. We saw that happen with initial COVID, where a lot of us went into contracts and then they extended it or they canceled it. And there's cost involved for us, and it's important that you capture that. But pay attention to the schedule and that your ability to deliver it. It's also part of your pricing structure, and they expect you to meet them. If you can't meet a schedule, you need to tell them that. Okay, don't ever leave that open-ended with the government or in a situation that's going to be delayed. That's when you do put collars. And if you have a product, for example, if you deliver eggs, right, nobody can get any eggs. So then you need to say, subject to market conditions and so forth. But make sure you speak to that in the right way, but say it's your full intent to meet it and meet their schedule. And this is really also a part of where the list of deliverables are discussed routinely. You should recognize those deliverables whenever you're going in and responding. If you don't, then it's not really the contract for you. Okay. So when you see those, sometimes you'll see a particular deliverable that you can't provide, but you have a solution for them. You should incorporate that solution and bring that to the response to them. Okay. Just because I can't meet every deliverable or I don't meet every technical specification doesn't mean I'm not going to respond. Okay. If the statement of work doesn't speak to me, that's different. But I just need a high degree of the list of technical specs and deliverables, because they could potentially pull something out if everybody's coming back with the same problem. Okay, and so that you should know that going into it, but you decrease your ability to capture that bid at the end when you can't meet a high degree of the specs or the deliverable. And also on my response back to them, I'm going to keep the same order, even though I'm my own subject matter expertise. I know I'm going to deliver in a different way. I'm going to address it the same way in the response back to them. And that's because, the technical person reviewing the document response is at first really the procurement officer. And they may not be familiar with all the things that are involved with the traditional project and HR. That's going to be the HR officer, for example, or in recreation, that's going to be the recreation director. And so what they're going to do is they're going to make sure that they're going to have their checklist, and they're going through and say, yes, he spoke to, or she spoke to all of these lists that own the deliverables in order to pass you forward. Okay. So just remember that going into it. And you can rearrange things later on when you get to the table. Contract terms and conditions, these are things that you need to live with. Okay, if you see a contract, governments are not going to change it. Okay, this is really where your profit center's at. So it's important that you understand what they're asking for and how they're asking for it, and what they're going to, if they're going to dock you, then for various parts of it, then you understand that. If you can't get out of the contract, details like that, read through that. If they don't provide a contract in their document, oftentimes this is the part where I do send a supplement and say, here's a sample contract if you should need it, and let them know. Go ahead and take the part or bring it to the table when you go in or you're invited in for the second round. Okay, but knowing that governments don't move too much on their contract terms. The format of a proposal, the best thing about government is they're not going to leave anything for doubt. Okay, they're going to tell you exactly how they want you to respond. If they want 10 pages back, they will tell you that. If they don't care, they also will tell you that part. Okay, don't send too much information on a proposal. You got to learn to get that right. Okay, and so if it is open-ended, you want to make sure that you are aware of that. And so the format of the proposal, follow the instructions. If they say sign on a particular line, you make sure you sign. I had a client miss it was a $3 million contract because they forgot to sign it. They sent it up to their boss to review, and he was supposed to sign it, and he forgot to sign the page and send it off. Then they lost the contract. So not following instructions was a big part of that. And the procurement officer kicked them out. And probably was the best proposal that they would have received. So it's sad that that happens, but it does happen. And if they tell you they want it on a single page or double space, things like this, you got to do exactly what they suggest. A lot of times they ask for 10 copies, and plus they want it on a travel drive. And people are like, why so specific? You got to do exactly what they want. And what's going to happen most likely there is they will have somebody neutral open it up and pass it along to 10 different observers. There's reasons why they do this. If they want it stamped and sealed, then you got to stamp and seal it. Okay. If they probably had a problem in the past, there's reasons why they have it built in situations. You read through that format of proposal. Sometimes I actually put on my Google Drive what's expected, and I'm checking it off to make sure it's there. Qualification and experience. If you can't sell yourself, that's kind of sad. So make sure you got a good qualification experience ready to go and speak to that. This is really routinely 70 to 80% of an RFP. Cost is almost always very low. The government wants to make sure that you can do the job and that they are going to be satisfied when they hire you. And they're not going to, nobody's going to be embarrassed for passing you through or recommending you to the city council or county commission. So selling yourself is very important. It doesn't mean you have to have a buttload of experience. Maybe I shouldn't use this word on YouTube, but you know what I'm saying. You don't have to have a bucket of all this experience listed. Just demonstrating that you know what you're talking about is the most important part. Sometimes when we come brand new, we don't have that, and we have to earn that over time. So governments understand that, but there's a reason why you're an entrepreneur. There's a reason why you're in business. Tell them that instead. Okay, when you first start, tell them why you're doing this. Tell them about your passion. Tell them about how good you are, how you've learned this over the past, maybe working for someone else, maybe your expertise in school, things like that. Okay, but be ready to speak. This is also another reason to make sure you got your capability statement first, because there you're going to go through this exercise and you're going to lay out your executive summary, you're going to lay out your client list, you're going to lay out your differentiators and your past performance and so forth. And so you have that ready to go. It helps you build that. And you need to have that in separated out in a Google Drive, so you can just clip and paste it and put it into an RFP, be ready to go. And that's always important. But they're going to tell you what they're looking for, and you're going to see the same sort of requirements over and over again in your businesses, in your sector. Okay. And then cost breakdown. A cost breakdown, they're going to tell you how they want you to go in and give them a cost. Okay. Sometimes they want it sealed. Sometimes they don't want it at all with an RFP. Sometimes they want it by the hour. You need to make sure that you give them the method back to them. So if you're traditionally in a fixed rate and they want an hourly, you got to give them an hourly. You can't just give them a fixed rate. Okay. You may want to cap it. You may want to put make sure there's something at the low end that you're covering. Okay. Do that, but you need to speak to it the way they want you to speak to it. Okay. But they're going to tell you that. And the last thing is that you always watch in a typical part is the evaluation criteria. They're telling you up front how they're going to score you. So that's important. The evaluation criteria, this is it's the matrix. I know when my students, when they come in, the first thing they ask me is, what is the scoring matrix for my grade? It's not what am I going to learn in this class? It's more about how are you going to evaluate me? Because they want that A. Everybody wants the A. Everybody wants to win. So if they're telling you how they're going to evaluate, then by goodness, make sure you go in and you use that and evaluate yourself. And you're going to get the same results potentially. You might maybe just a little bit better if you're evaluating yourself. But in your office, get 5 or 6 people, or friends to take a look at it if you're getting started, and tell them what you're doing, give them your pitch, and let them evaluate using the criteria that agency's using. And you'll find that that's going to be very close to the way you get scored when it goes in. And then pay attention to it if you don't win the project. Understand why you didn't win a project. It's not always that you need to change something. If they have all the scores there, you can go change everything. You can go in there and look specifically where you were lower at, and then you can kind of address that in your next proposal. So learn from that, dust off a little bit. When you get up, so it's not always how you fail, it's really how you get up. Okay. And when you're looking at an RFP, and I told you about the statement of work, the first thing you're going to remember is Coldplay. Plays in the head. Play it to this afternoon. It's a good Friday afternoon song. You're the one that I wanted to find. If that RFP doesn't sing that song to you, then it's not the right RFP for you. Okay. I don't want to be too corny, but that's the truth. Okay. You got to open that RFP up in that executive summary or that scope of work, and it should say to you, this is perfect. This is we're a good match, and you move forward. And I want you to always remember, this is another one that I have, Parkinson's law. Work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. If they give you 3 days, you're going to be able to respond in 3 days if you got your act together. If they give you 2 weeks, you need to take 2 weeks. If you got a month, take the month, because there's going to be work that's going to be added to that RFP over time. Don't just fire it back. It's too quick. Okay. Take your time, get it there just a day or two ahead of time. Okay. And with that, there's some tips. Every time you look at an RFP, read the entire proposal. Okay. I start at the scope of work. If it doesn't speak to me, then I'm not going to mess with the rest of it. But if it does, then I'm going to start reading through all of it. Because at the very end, there could be something specific that just misses, that just says, we can't hire you for some reason. Okay. Or maybe I'm bidding in New England. They will only hire a firm out of Vermont. Okay. So if I read that, then I just need to let it go. I'm not going to be able to convince them to do something else. So I want to read through that, make sure that I've got those before I actually sit down and try to respond. Then pay attention to the areas that you and I just talked about. The technical specs, the deliverables, the schedule. Make sure you can meet the schedule in terms of work product. And then, once again, think about it, talk to your colleagues, make sure you're a good fit. If you need to bring somebody in on the bid, get them lined up, and then complete the proposal. Do it at one setting. If you haven't ever done one before, hire someone to help you with the first one. It's worth it. It's a good investment. Run you probably about $2,200. It seems like a lot when you first starting off. You got to budget these things. The first couple of things you need to budget for after finding the bids, finding them first and start reading them is important. That's the first step. Second, making sure you got your capability statement. Invest in that. Typically runs you around $400, $500 to get something like that done. And then get some help on the very first RFP. And because these are going to be, if you're in the right sector, it's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in projects over and over again. And you want to make sure. I have, in my career, I've worked on I've bid on close to 1,000. I've won about 350 in 34 states. And these typically average prices in the $25,000 to $50,000 range. So they come over time, and they're good. It's good business. But when I first started out, I had to invest in that. And the more you invest in it, the better I think you're going to be in the long run, and it could carry you away. Okay, so remember that. So take some time and build in that initial template on your response. The good news is once you do that first one, the second one gets easier, the third one gets better, fourth one, it's like in that quote I gave for Tom Hanks. That's good. It's hard work, but it's good fit, good practice. You get better at it. Okay. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the only source of knowledge is experience. So let's take a look at an RFP. Okay. And so when you go to our system, either you're coming to us through GovDirections. Okay. And at GovDirections here, you can do just a quick, this is our primary USA service. We've been doing this page now since 1998. In terms of bidding, you could do some very quick, easy keyword search. Let's just say if I did compensation study, okay, maybe I want to look at compensation, general keyword, spell it correctly, search, and it's going to show me some bids. You know, what we learned now from our membership and what they've told us is they really, well, this is good. If I'm in Texas or Florida, this is a big state. So I may want to go in and actually look a little bit closer and do a geospatial type look. So we have created RFP delivery, still in final beta form, but it's building not only US, but also Canada, others places. In fact, you can go in somewhat quickly and see in a searching to see a mapping of all kinds of bids and where they're at. We have about 44,000 today. When you list that, it'll show you geographically a map. And so if you are in Texas, you can drill in Texas, you know, or California, really look at just the ones in Northern California, Southern California, a lot of bids today. Just governments are spending money to get new budgets. And so, you know, we'll focus in. A lot of times I have a company who just does solid waste in the Southeast, and they're with the states that have to they touch the Gulf of Mexico. So they might look at a map like this, go in, you can go in and actually choose by the industry. And let's just look, maybe I do human resource management, and this is I'm using it. Others might want to come look at it a different way. And then I drill down, you know, and this is just the HR projects. Or maybe I want to go over there and work in Ireland, you know, a good summer project, maybe one time. Let's see. I'm getting to a point of career, make sure that the jobs really fit you. Okay. There's one there in Amarillo, one here in Georgia. Let's see what's down there in Georgia. Here's a pay study. And if I click on that, open it up, it'll give me some details in Albany. Albany is a town in middle southwest Georgia. Okay. It's right in my wheelhouse, in fact. As I'm looking through here, I'm always seeing the title, I'm seeing the state, I'm seeing the due date. It's just kind of a quick turnaround. So I got all weekend to work on it if I want to. I'm kidding with you. I've already looked at this one. I passed on it, but it's a good one. Okay. It gives you me my reference number, contact. If there's a specific contact, it'll drop in. You know, if I'm not quite sure, I may want to learn over here at Gov School. I can click through, see those classes I showed you earlier. And in this one here, if I need somebody, I can hire a writer. You can click on there. Gov Advice is our micro consulting platform, and we'll connect you to a writer to do things such as write your capability statement, or if you need somebody to help you with that first RFP, doing that template. Here's the bid, tapping through, and Joshua is the primary contact. You know, if I got a point, any question this time, I'm regarding this particular project, I need to be reaching out to Joshua. The government wants to work with you directly in the process, and I can email them, go in. I want to look for the documents. Here it is. And see, they've added some addendums over time. I want to make sure I read all the addendums. Okay. And so here's that one downloaded on my system here. And it's in a PDF format. So let me just give you that access to see that RFP. Here's a live one. Okay. So I was able to step through and show you a real RFP. Okay. And so let me just make sure I did that the right way. I'll give you access to, let's see here. Okay, here it goes. And we should all be looking at the RFP now. This is the document itself. It's a request for proposal. Sometimes I have a little cover letter goes with it. And those addendums may be answers to questions. They had a pre-proposal conference back there in January. So they likely had some questions. And their answers to those questions on those addendums. Okay. But I would have wanted to be at that pre-proposal conference if I was going to bid, even if it's not mandatory, it's important. If I've missed it and it wasn't mandatory, then I'm still eligible to, to proceed with that. Sometimes these are in person, sometimes not. And most of them nowadays are online. Okay. But I'm gonna start picking up on key pieces. Like this is going to have to be due back on January 23rd at 5 p.m. Okay. I got to get it back then. Now, that's going to be Monday. So I'm not going to wait until the last minute, especially if it's a technically driven one. Okay. If it's technically driven, then I want to make sure I'm getting it to them, probably early in the morning on Monday. I'm not going to give it to them today. Too much mischief could happen. I want people seeing my RFP, my response until it's there. Okay. Specifically if it's dealing with price. Okay. So they're giving me this summary, give me the big facts there in the cover letter, who to contact, things like that. And I want to pay attention. I actually know some folks down there in Albany because I'm in Georgia. I don't need to be calling them and asking about this project. I only need to be dealing with Joshua. Okay. And when I do, I need to email E. Mitchell. Okay. Do exactly what they want, because you don't want to be ruled ineligible because you violated some cone of silence that's there. Okay. In this particular reason, they don't, a summary, they don't really have an executive summary or scope of work just yet. See, it looks like it's described in there. So I'm going to get to it, but they're going to give me my instructions first. Okay. So I'm going to, this is what I'm going to check off. I'm going to check off every single thing. Make sure I can meet every single item. Okay. Before I respond. Don't send it back until you've done that. Okay. There could be something in there that you thought you understood, but you didn't. So here's the background. So they will actually give me a background about the organization. And within this RFP, they're telling me some, they give me some indicators. These are ways of success. Okay. I can look at these. I can start driving my spreadsheet that I'm going to use to respond to, and then check off particular items. For example, I typically work with organizations that have between 50 and 1,000 employees. Does this organization meet that? Yes, 892 employees. That's a check. Okay. And not only that, they have 592, even less, even better. Check. Okay. Also want a bid that's not necessarily in my backyard, but close enough for me to make it efficient, cost effective. Sometimes I work just out west and I focus just on those in different types of the year. And now I've gotten a little bit more selective. You may get selective too as you go along in your career. Okay. And this here is geographically where it's at. Yes, good. The types of departments that I'm working with. Who is the decision maker? These are items that only you can identify. Okay. Get you a list of about 15 items. The more the merrier. Okay. And then every single time you look at an RFP, you check it off. And if you don't have a high degree of match on your indicators of success, then you move away from it. It's just a waste of your time. Okay. If you do have a high degree of match, then you pursue it. Okay. And you will not waste your time. Okay. That's the thing to remember. And because there's plenty of business out there for you to take that approach. Okay. And it's going to be more successful for you. And you're not getting frustrated because you're throwing darts. Okay. There's their objectives. Okay. Making sure I should understand these objectives. And whenever I write my response back to them, I need to incorporate those objectives. So I'm going to help you achieve a system that attracts and retains qualified employees. That is my primary goal. This is how I'm going to do it. Okay. I'm going to ensure the positions perform similar work that have essentially the same level of complexity. Okay. You're using their words, crafting it back to them. Okay. And speak to those in those way. And they're giving you some details here. Insurance requirements. Don't let that scare you off. Maybe I have a $500,000. Actually, most of businesses have what they're asking for, but maybe I have only a $500,000. There, I may go ahead and just call my insurance person. Say, can I get an increase to this level? And if so, how much will it cost me? No, but I don't do it until I win the contract. And then I provide that letter that I'm insurable. If I win the contract, then I'll increase to that level. If it's not a big cost, go ahead and do it. This is kind of mostly what you see in any RFP. You're going to see it in every one of the responses that you send back. Okay. Indemnification, that's always a big word for us, but governments are never going to indemnify you. So don't worry about that. That's not going to happen. And just be clear, they're not going to change anything. They're going to also tell you how they're going to terminate you. They're going to arrange that these, in theory, the firm, learning how to do business in government, with government, and how government business in general works. This is, things don't work out. They're going to tell you how we're going to fix it. Okay. These are clauses that almost always all of us should get comfortable with. The government's not going to give you any doubt. Okay. Just know that going into it. You got to deliver, they're going to cancel it. In addition, they're also always going to say, if the funding doesn't come through, I can't pay you. You just got to accept that going into it. How they want you to deliver it here, they want one original labeled, one electronic copy, PDF. That doesn't even necessarily make sense. Okay. So I guess you don't want to print out a PDF. Okay. You want to give it to them in a stored disk of some sort. And they also want 5 hard copies. Okay. Don't give them 6, don't give them 10, give them 5. So there's one original and then 5 copies. Okay. I would even put at the top of my hard copy, something like that to show you're paying attention. One of them marked original, because what is the difference? I don't know. What's the difference in an original 5 copy? Sometimes it doesn't really make sense to you, but you got to do what they want you to do. Okay. So be aware of that. It's got to be clearly marked. Okay. Don't say, I typically use the word compensation. I got to say pay. Okay. The RFP number, details like that. These are small things you don't want to miss Okay. And then they're going to tell you how they're evaluating you. Okay. Quality of the proposal, that you can follow some instructions that you actually gave them 5 hard copies, 10 points. You get 10 points for that. Okay. It's just showing up. Okay. Qualifications of your firm, 25 points. Already that's 35 points both of us can get. Project understanding and approach, I've spoke to what they're asking for. They're going to give me 15 points. Past performance, that's really a done my capability statement. I've got that ready to go, 30 points. So look, 80 points, something other than fee. Okay. Money, the cost of it is 20 points. Okay. So 80 points is your ability to sell yourself. It really is. So we're coming in there with that basic understanding. The ability to get this done by April 28th is a big feature for them. That's going to be the differentiator in this project. It's not going to be price. Okay. Just know that going in and see something like this, small things that's going to be, if you can get something done on their time frame, their schedule, you're going to win this project. That's how you look, and how they're going to select it. If they tell me there's a committee, I'm going to try to find out who's on the committee. I'm going to start doing some research. I'm going to go, how you do research. I'm going to go to Albany, Georgia, on the web, and I'm going to look at them. And we have links to this in our system, so you don't have to go and find all this. But I'm going to go there. I'm going to look at that organization. If the decision making body is the city council, then I'm going to go in there and look up the city council, look at their past agendas, look at their meeting dates, look at how they're discussing with each other. Do they get along? Things like this. This is going to give me details that I need to understand. And I'm going to start watching their agendas to see, because if you're there to respond at the right time, and you're going to broadcast that, they're going to talk about it. You learn so much from commission meetings that's not, most people forget about that. But this is where we get into sort of the past performance class I have, and really kind of go in there and looking and find information for your projects. So we talked about an RFP specifically, and I've shown you an example and of one, and we walked through it together. And so I want you to be comfortable with them. So start pulling them and looking at those RFPs and see the best ones for you before you pursue them. And if you have questions, reach out to me. I'll be glad to set up a time with you. We have personal consulting sessions ready for you. If you like to see those, you can click through where it says request a demo on your account. If you always get to your account, you can click on the icon either at GovDirections or RFP Delivery. Here is the request a demo area, request a meeting, and you can go in. If you want a one-on-one demonstration about a specific RFP, it's available here for booking, or just a private demonstration for 20 minutes is here. So thank you for coming today. Have a great afternoon, and get best of luck.